and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Shireen and today I'm going to be talking about eyeshadow. Specifically, how to get into eyeshadow as a beginner. So, I feel like I have a lot of friends who are interested in incorporating eyeshadow into their beauty/makeup routine, but aren't really sure where to start, think the process might be intimidating. So I bought my smoothie. This is an acai smoothie that I made at home and I'm really excited about it. I have a new blender and it's the best thing. Anyway, I picked out a palette that I tend to recommend to people as their first palette or as their first neutral palette when they are looking for something that's going to be practical for day to day, for going out, and isn't going to have a lot of color, but is going to have useful shades that's going to give them that glam look or that kind of like elevated situation that they might be looking for. So this is the Soft Glam palette by Anastasia Beverly Hills. It came out within the past year. I've had it for a couple of months. It is well loved and I've used it a fair amount because I always want to make sure that I use something before I start recommending it to people, especially on my channel. For, you know, all of my many viewers. I have 10 subscribers at this point. But I think this is such a beautiful palette. I think that the shadows are blendable. I think that they perform well. Great for a beginner. There are a lot of beautiful neutral palettes on the market. I'll try to link some others that I recommend down below. That said, I'm recommending those based on the color scheme and my general experience with the formulas from those brands. Not all of those palettes are palettes that I've personally used and worked with, so keep that in mind. But anyway, I like this palette because I think it has a really good balance of mattes and shimmer shades, which is really important. I think people tend to gravitate towards shimmer shades because it's fairly obvious what you do with them. You put them all over your lid, they sparkle, they're pretty. And I think they underestimate the importance of mattes. And mattes are what create depth and dimension and shape to your eyes. So when you have a palette like this, it can be intimidating or confusing to know where to begin and how to use all the different shades. So the way that I wanted to format this video is to do 3 different looks with increasing amounts of complexity throughout the look. So the first look is going to only incorporate a couple of shadows. It's going to be really friendly for daytime or going out, depending on, you know, how much you want going on. The second look is going to be a little bit more complex, and the third look is going to be the most complex. And so at whatever level that you are, you can maybe learn something from this video or try to level up, try something that's a little bit different from what you've already been doing. I'm going to jump into it. The first look that I'm going to be showing that I've already done on this eye, minus the mascara, is going to be the simplest, and it's going to involve only one brush. I think tools are really, really important in doing makeup, and I think it is important to place as much emphasis on your brushes as it is to place on the powders that you're using them with. When you're starting out, I know that it's hard to build up a good collection of brushes. So for the first look, I just wanted to use a single brush. This is a big fluffy crease brush. It's a little bit larger than you might want based on the shape of your eyes and the size of your eyes. I tend to have larger eyes, so I can use bigger brushes, but if you have smaller eyes than mine, you want to go with a brush that looks like this but is smaller. This is the Morphe M504. A brush that looks like this but is smaller is the, oh, here's one that works. The Morphe M573. I tend to be a fan of Morphe brushes because I think they're fairly affordable. You're looking at like $3 to $7 for a brush. The eyeshadow brushes tend to be a little bit cheaper on that spectrum. And you can choose the exact bristle shape and bristle size. So when people ask me for brush recommendations, I generally turn towards Morphe. So like I said, I've already done this eyeshadow look on this eye, and it only uses 2 shades, 1 brush. So the first thing that I did is I went into Burnt Orange, which is my favorite transition shade from this palette, dipped my brush in. You always want to get rid of excess, especially when you're starting out. I think it can be hard to start out with too much eyeshadow at once. And then I'm going to dip that into the crease and just swipe it gently back and forth, building up that color. With a look like this, you don't have to worry too much about precision, but you do want to control your brush to the extent that you can and make sure that it's going in the crease and not too far up into the brow bone, because you want to have a little bit of space left on the brow bone without any eyeshadow on it. And feel free to bring it into the inner corner as much as you want. So I'm going to keep building that up, and I'm going to try not to cut out too much time on this so that you can get an idea of how much time I'm actually spending doing a look like this. So just moving back and forth, building up that pigmentation, making sure that it's even with the other eye. Once you're satisfied with that, we're going to move on to the shimmer shade. 2 shades, like I said. So for my skin tone, I'm going to be using Glistening, and I'm just going to take that on my finger, which is how we're getting away with using one single brush. And I'm just going to swipe that on. So a crease brush is not going to be the best brush to use for a shimmer shade because the bristles aren't that dense. So it's not going to pick up on a lot of shimmers and thus isn't going to distribute product as closely together as you're going to want. Your finger, however, has a flat surface, meaning that it's going to pick up a lot of product and it's going to distribute it exactly how you want. So I'm just going to swipe that across my lid. It's okay if you go a little bit into the crease, but make sure that you don't branch out too much into the inner corner. And then take your pinky and do just a small tap on the inner corner to bring a little bit of brightness to that area. Go back in with that original brush, no additional product, and buff in that transition. Don't be afraid to cover up some of the shimmer shade at this stage because it's going to soften that transition and it's going to make it look a little bit more natural. And then keep repeating these steps until you're satisfied with what you have and you feel that the eyeshadow is even on both of your eyes. Okay, now I think it's important to do the lower lash line even with a simpler look. So I'm going to take this brush and I'm going to pinch the sides of it. Then I'm going to dip it into burnt orange again and I'm going to apply it gently on the lower lash line. Pinching the sides of it is going to not only change the shape, but the density of the brush. So I do want the pigment to be a little bit more tightly controlled on my lower lash line. I just threw on some mascara and there's this look complete. If you wanted to add some eyeliner, you can. Really simple and easy to do. So there's our first look. Oh, also, I'm not wearing a lipstick because I'm still drinking my smoothie. Also, can't be bothered. Now let's move on to our second eyeshadow look. This one I've already done on this eye, and as you can see, it involves a little bit more depth. And for this one, I used a total of 7 of the shades, but don't worry, it only involved adding 3 extra steps on top of what we already have done. And I wanted to keep the first look 1 so I wouldn't be repeating myself so much, and 2 so I wouldn't have to wipe my makeup off and start again. So for this look, I incorporated 2 other brushes. So now we're looking at, as our tools, a total of 3 brushes and our finger. So let's assume that we already did what we had done in our first look, which means that we put burnt orange into the crease using our big fluffy blending brush, and then we put glistening all over our lid. And now we're going to deepen up the outer corner of the crease by taking a smaller crease brush. This is my favorite all-time brush. This is the Morphe M506, and we're going to dip that into a darker brown shade, not one of the super deep ones that are edging on black, but something that's definitely darker than our transition shade. So for this one, I chose to mix Sienna and Rustic on the brush, and you can tap back and forth between shadows. Not enough will deposit from one shadow into another to actually cause any problems unless you're mixing shadows that are very different in color. So then we're going to take that and we're going to gently deposit it onto the outer corner, like so. So if you can see what I just did there. And next, I'm going to just start to slowly blend that into the crease, not bringing it up nearly as high as we brought up the burnt orange shade. And blending it into the side as well. And try to get equal darkness on both eyes. But remember, you shouldn't be using too much product, so very gently tap off excess powder, and go slowly and in tight controlled motions. So for this look, something else that I did that I consider more of an optional step, I just wasn't happy with how sparkly glistening was, is I took some of bronze also on my finger and I put that across my lid. But I didn't bring it too far into the outer corner. So we still have some of glistening as you move towards the outer corner. Do you see how sparkly that is? I don't know if it's picking up on camera, but I can definitely see it sparklier in the mirror. And then I'm just going to go back in with Sienna and Rustic and reapply those shades in case we covered up some of it and lost some of that depth. In case you're curious why I don't recommend putting shimmer shades into the crease, it's because the purpose of putting shadows into the crease is to create depth in your eyes, and shimmers cause light to reflect off of them, which reduces that effective depth and kind of like breaks that illusion. I'm also going to take Rustic and Sienna, also on this brush, and I'm going to connect that onto the lower lash line, but not bring it fully into the inner corner. And that's just to create a little bit more cohesiveness between the lid and the lower lash line. Building that up until we're satisfied. At this stage, I also recommend going back in with your bigger crease brush, dipping that into the original transition shade, which in this case is burnt orange, and using that to soften up the edge between the darker shades, in this case Sienna and Rustic, that you just added, and the original transition shade. Next, I'm going to move on to the brow bone highlight. So I'm going to be using a shade like Tempera, and you can see how much lighter than my skin tone it is. So you want to find a shade that's about that difference in skin tone for you, depending on what your skin tone is. If you're very pale, this might be hard, and you might just want to skip this step altogether, or find a very light, very white-based highlight and just use that on your brow bone. Something to note is that you would see a little bit of shimmer on my brow bone right now, and the reason why that's there is that when I was applying my highlighter, I brought that up to my brow bone in a C shape. So that's what you're seeing. That's also a trick that you can do that's really simple, that'll get you the effect of the brow bone highlight without an additional step. But if you do want to do it explicitly as part of your eyeshadow routine, I recommend taking a brush. This is a very small detail packing brush from ABH Cosmetics. It doesn't have a name. And I dip that into Tempera, and now I'm going to apply that to my brow bone. And what this does is part of the whole idea of the illusion of building depth in your eye. So it's going to bring the brow bone forward because it's going to allow light to be on it. One, because this is a satin and it's going to reflect light a little bit, and two, because it's a lighter color, and that's going to enhance the illusion of your eyes being set deeper. So we're just going to add that onto the brow bone. This doesn't have to be too precise either. Just make sure that you're not bringing it too far down into your transition shade. And I'm satisfied with that. And then I'm going to take the same brush and I'm going to dip that into Fairy, and I'm going to put that on the inner corner, just because it's a lighter shade, and that's another fun area of your eye to have brightness. Make sure that they're matching. So I made this side a little bit brighter, so I'm going to add some to this side as well. And you can use your finger to soften out the inner corner highlight if you feel like it's too harsh. And there we have it. And so this is the eyeshadow look on the next level of complexity. So what did we do that we hadn't done before? In addition to the crease and shimmer on the lid, we deepened up the outer corner with some darker shades. We did a brow bone highlight. We did an explicit inner corner highlight using a different shade. And we also added another shimmer onto the lid to create a little bit more of a gradient and add a little bit more sparkle. So from here, we're going to go into an even more glam look, still using the soft glam palette. I just went ahead and did complexity level 3 on this eye, and now I'm going to walk you through it on this other eye. I also threw on a lip. So I have Melted Matte in the shade Sellout on my lips, and then in the center I did ABH, which stands for Anastasia Beverly Hills Gloss in the shade Parfait, which is a metallic gloss, just in the middle a little bit. And you can see the difference between the two eye looks that I have going on right now. There's definitely a lot more depth on the side. I don't know how visible it is on camera, but I did a gradient of shimmers going across the lid that makes it look a little bit smokier. I didn't add too many extra brushes to do this look, just because I'm trying to be mindful, but I did use a lot of the shades in the end. The first thing that I did when transitioning from level 2 to level 3 was I took orange soda on that original big brush, and I put that right here. And you can see it immediately adds some warmth because it gives you another transition shade. So if you were starting out at level 3, you might want to lay down orange soda and then on top of it put burnt orange right when you're beginning. But since I don't want to wipe off all this makeup and make you go through everything all over again, I'm just going to add it where it would be visible. So bringing it up a little bit higher than we brought burnt orange, just to add some warmth. I have two Morphe M506s, and that's because I'm using a black shadow, and I like to keep a separate brush for when I use a black. So I'm going to take one of my Morphe M506s, and I'm going to go back into Sienna and Rustic and build up those shades again and bring them out a little bit farther than we had before. And the reason why I'm doing that is I'm about to add some other shades onto the outer corner. Now, I'm going to take a mix of Cypress Umber and Mulberry just to warm it up and introduce some reds into it. And I'm going to deposit those on the outer corner, and I'm just going to use the same brush. You could do either one of those shades, or you could do both, depending on the kind of colors that you want to achieve. So I'm just depositing that gently on the outer corner and blending it up ever so slightly into the crease. But now, since we have this gradient of colors, we don't want to be losing colors as we add more. We want to make sure that there's a distance or a separation between them so everything is visible in its rightful place. Rightful. I'm very serious about my eyeshadows. Alright. So depositing that carefully and going into the crease a little bit. The next thing that I did was I took Sultry on one of my fingers. I love the shade, I think it's so beautiful. And then I put it close to the outer corner right there, so that you transition from Rustic and Sienna into Sultry. And it's partially going to cover things, that's okay. And then like with the shimmer gradient, it's really about like what colors you want on your eyelid. But the next thing that I did is on my pinky, I took Rose Pink, just because I wanted to incorporate it, and I put it right next to Sultry. Just like tapping it on. I didn't end up using any packing brushes on my lid. You could. I think that they definitely help. I just didn't because I wanted to keep it to the bare minimum. To keep some of that bronze, I took that brush that we used for our inner corner highlight and our brow bone highlight, and I dipped that into bronze, and I did a little bit of bronze moving towards the outer corner next to rose gold. So you can notice that I'm transitioning from darker shimmers on the outer corner into lighter shimmers on the inner corner, which is something that I generally like to do. Now I'm taking glistening, by the way. I'm putting it next to bronze. Not touching the inner corner highlight that we already have, like that's already there, no need to worry about it. Next, I'm going to take Rustic and Sienna on the brush that I used with Mulberry a second ago, Mulberry and Cypress Umber. And I'm gonna soften up that crease and blend those shadows. So in our crease right now, the shades that should really be visible are Orange Soda transitioning into Burnt Orange, transitioning into this mix of Rustic and Sienna. Not bringing that too far out. You can definitely bring it more far out now that this isn't your darkest shade anymore. And then also take care of your outer corner and this transition into the lower lash line. Go back in with the bigger brush and those original transition shades. Soften them up. It's totally normal and okay to have to go back and forth. Next, I'm going to take that same brush, dip it into, let's start out with Sultry and Rustic, and put it on the lower lash line on the outer corner, bringing it out maybe 2/3 of the way. And then I'm going to take Mulberry and Cypress Umber and put those on the lower lash line as well. Taking it out only 1/3 of the way. I'm starting to get a little bit of fallout with these darker shades, so I'm just going to brush that away with the Morphe M437. Obviously you can use any clean brush that fits this area well and get rid of some of the fallout. Now I'm going to take the brush that I had set aside for the black, and just to clean it off a little bit, I'm going to use this color switch, which is definitely something I highly recommend, especially if you don't have a lot of brushes, to maximize what the brushes that you have can do. So this just cleans up the brush without you having to wet it and wait for it to dry. And I'm going to dip that into Noir. And definitely top off the excess. You're working with the black, so you want to be careful. And I'm going to gently deposit that on the outer corner. And slowly start to build it up. I think you can see the effect that that's adding, making sure that it's even with both eyes, that you're really controlling your brush. And blacks are not colors that I generally try to bring up into the crease. Okay, now I'm going to take that other Morphe brush, go back into Cypress, Umber, and Mulberry, and add those to around the black to make it less dark. I'm going to clean this brush off, and then I'm going to go back into Rustic and Sienna. And as you can see, like, there's a lot more back and forth. The more shadows get involved, the more gradients get involved. So I'm putting Rustic and Sienna back into the crease and easing those transitions. And then at this stage, if you think that you've lost some of those shimmers, you can reapply those. I think I'm going to go back in with Sultry, this time on my pinky finger. And just carefully tap a little bit more of that back on. And that looks about even. So I'm going to add some mascara onto this eye and then maybe add on some falsies so you can see how this look would look with falsies and without. These are the House of Lashes Iconic Minis. Here goes. So we have lashes on, and you can see what this makeup would look like with a fairly heavy set of false lashes. You might not want to wear false lashes, or you might not want to wear false lashes that are this dramatic. Really up to you. But since this is a little bit more of a dramatic makeup look, I think you can pull off something like this. Or you can wear false lashes that are a little bit wispier, a little bit more subtle. So those are 3 looks using the Soft Glam eyeshadow palette. 3 looks that use different tools, a different number of shades, so you can really work with this palette no matter what level of eyeshadow you're comfortable with doing, no matter what amount of time that you have to throw something together. And I really hope that this was helpful, and I really hope that this lowers barriers for some of you for getting into eyeshadow, because I think it's so fun. And I know so many people who love foundation and love blush and love highlighter, but kind of stay away from eyeshadow a little bit because it does involve that level of precision. But I think anyone can do it, and I would love for you to comment down below if you have any questions, or if this is at all helpful for you, or if you end up getting this palette, or if you have questions about other palettes that you could get, maybe drugstore palettes that don't involve spending as much money. So this palette is, I believe, $42 on Sephora right now. In any case, here is our final look. I hope to see you again. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. Please subscribe so that you will be notified when I have my next video. And I hope to see you soon. Bye!